If you guys would like to buy coins, you can go to MMOXP.com. There will be a link in the description. They are the cheapest and safest option. You can use my code JFC at checkout for a 5% discount. Well, guys, we just got a massive press release from EA that highlighted their Q3 results for their fiscal year, and it highlights some very, very interesting things. And we basically now know the exact reason as to why EA have been listening to us and making changes for our betterment. The entire reason is in this article right here that we're going to talk about. And honestly, this is very, very promising for us and shows you that we are making a difference right now. So we'll get into that. And it also highlighted some things I didn't even expect. And we'll also get into that here in just a second too. But this is a very, very important piece of our experience on the game, is basically their financial earnings. Like, that is a huge piece as to how we receive new content on a day-to-day basis, honestly, is based on their earnings. And we'll talk about that right now. So thank you all for being here on the second channel, by the way, and subscribe if you are new. But okay, let's just break this down. I'm actually going to probably read through each paragraph here and talk about kind of what it means after doing a tiny bit of research myself. So, business outlook as of January 22nd, 2025, which was yesterday. EA's initial guidance for fiscal year 2025 anticipated mid-single digit growth in live services net bookings. However, the company now projects a mid-single digit decline, with global football accounting for the majority of the change. This is really interesting because, you know, usually you'd expect them to not meet their goals per se, but this is a literal decline. They're losing players and money. Well, actually, they don't say anything about player count, but we'll talk about that here in a sec. They just talk about the money aspects. Global football had experienced 2 consecutive fiscal years of double-digit net bookings growth. However, the franchise experienced a slowdown as early momentum in the fiscal third quarter did not sustain through to the end. As a result, EA revises its outlook for global football to end the fiscal year down mid-single digit at the midpoint of the new outlook. And the last sentence was about Dragon Age there, but yes, they are not meeting their revenue goals. In fact, they're declining. Now, you might say, okay, the third quarter, wouldn't that be like June and July time of last year? You know, Q3 of a fiscal year. EA's fiscal year actually begins, I believe it is April 1st. Yes, March 31st is where their fiscal year ends. So Q3 for them is actually the prime time FC 25 time. It is October, November, and December. That is the Q3 for EA here. Q4 would then be January, February, March, because it ends March 31st, right? So Q3 actually ended on December 30th. Is it the 30th is the last day of December? I don't remember the date, but the prime FC 25 time, they did not reach their revenue goals. Now, we'll talk more about that in just a sec when we kind of get through all the article, but this piece here is very interesting actually, because here's a quote from Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, right? During Q3, we continue to deliver high quality games and experiences across our portfolio. However, Dragon Age and EA Sports FC 25 underperformed our net bookings expectations. This month, our teams delivered a comprehensive gameplay refresh in addition to our annual Team of the Year update in FC 25. Positive player feedback and early results are encouraging. We remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in fiscal year 26 as we execute against our pipeline. So this right here is pretty insane. And why this is so interesting to me is because he is talking to his shareholders here, right? He's trying to tell them that, like, hey, don't freak out. We had a decline. We know that, but hey, we actually did some things to help turn this around and it's looking good. But what is mind-blowing to me here is that literally in a press release, they highlighted a gameplay change that they're like, hey, this is one of the reasons why players will stick onto this game now and will make more money based off of the gameplay change. So you're telling me this whole time with gameplay, they've been confident that gameplay is tied to making money. If the gameplay is good, they'll make more money behind it. That is mind-blowing to me. And the reason that that's mind-blowing to me is because we have thought that that was not the case at all for years now, that they've made pretty dog shit gameplay. And we're like, okay, that doesn't really correlate towards their money made, right? And I think we have always been like, that doesn't really make sense as to why that wouldn't be the case, but EA clearly don't think that is the case. This is highlighting the fact that they must think that is the case, that gameplay changes and good gameplay can make them more money in the long term. Why? Like, who have you been hiring to make the gameplay if that's how you've actually thought? Because what a giant disaster. If you genuinely believe that gameplay can help make you more money, you have been hiring the wrong people. I'm sorry, I hate to be like that blunt about it. You have either one, been hiring the wrong people, or two, you have just realized this now, that gameplay can make a difference on your bottom bottom line because it makes people more engaged with their game. So this might have been something they just figured out now. And if it's not, that is actually just disturbing how fucking terrible they've been at making good gameplay when they do think it correlates to money made. And it said down here, EA will announce its results for the third fiscal quarter ending December 31st. So like I said, that's their third quarter date ending on February 4th, 2025. So this is all basically a warning to their shareholders that, hey, we didn't make the money we thought we would during quarter three. That's all this is. This is not even like, this isn't even the full report. This is just a warning, basically. Just like when you see it, don't freak out because it's not what we thought. So, and the rest of it down here is basically nonsense. So you don't need to worry about that. But this is honestly a huge step in the right direction from us, because this shows you that during the prime of FC25, people are not spending money on it. And this is also what I wanted to talk about that I said we would earlier, is they don't highlight anything about the player count here, right? They do in Dragon Age. They said they were down 50% player count from the other quarter, or sorry, 50% down from expectations on Dragon Age, but they don't talk about that for FC25. So, I mean, what this could mean here actually is the player count numbers weren't that bad, but people weren't spending money on the game. And maybe they both go hand in hand to where they didn't even bother announcing it because the money was the more important thing, which definitely could have been the case. And we did see that the player count numbers weren't as bad as last year, but they weren't great in the November time, in the early December time, right? They weren't great. But there was actually less players playing last year during those months. So they had worse revenue despite there being on Steam, by the way. This is just Steam charts, so it's not the perfect comprehensive look at player count, but it's the only thing we really got. On Steam count, we actually have more players playing this year, but they made less money, which I think is amazing. It's a great sign for us because that shows you that the outlook on FC points has reached a bigger and broader audience of like, hey, stop spending money on this game. Even if you continue playing it, stop spending money on it, because at the end of the day, what hurts them? This is what hurts them. They could have had a good player count, but if there's no money to show for it, then it doesn't matter. I think what they meant right here was, where was this sentence? Right here. Global football experienced 2 consecutive fiscal years of double-digit net bookings growth. Because remember last year with the new title change to FC, they actually didn't, I think, expect to see a massive growth in the revenue, but they did because I think they just went fully down the store pack realm, right? Last year is when it became just fucking insane for the store packs and people just couldn't help themselves. The gambling addicts just spent a ton of money. They went full cater to whale status and it worked, I think. But then the next sentence here, however, the franchise experienced a slowdown as early momentum in the fiscal third quarter did not sustain. So what my guess is what happened here was FC25 did sell well. Like, I think it sold more copies than FC24, I believe. But I think that's what they meant by like, hey, we had early momentum in the fiscal third quarter, because that was like really early October, right? If the quarter began October 1st, then it did not sustain through to the end because people were like, damn, the gameplay sucks dick. It didn't seem like EA really cared at all. And when you don't have the at least illusion that you care about us, people will just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna spend money on this game. But this does show you that no matter what the player count is, guys, it does not matter what the player count is. If you don't spend money on the game, it is not good for EA. It's really just as simple as that. I think sometimes people forget that. It's like, okay, I'm already playing the game a bunch, so like I might as well spend some money on it because like I'm playing it. There's not really a point in not at that point, but there really is, guys. If you're playing this game right now and you're not spending money on it, that is great. This earnings report shows you that, right? And then there's also, once again, let's talk about the paragraph down here where it says positive player feedback and early results are encouraging. I'm assuming early results is a way of saying early money made looks good so far. So just remind you guys, I know team of the year is, one of the most fun times of the year. I know that I'm not going to sit here and hound you on how to spend your money, but if you want to see changes like this continue, then you need to not spend the money on this game, because the reason we have this gameplay update, which obviously isn't perfect, but it's still better, right? We're seeing more things added into the game that's better for us because their money wasn't looking as good. Really as simple as that, right? And that's because we have done a good job not going over the top spending money. Now, a little thing to this that actually I low-key think maybe adds a little +1 to the conspiracy theorists out there. And keep in mind, I'm not even the biggest DDA believer. I think that there is something going on in the game that I think is most likely out of EA's knowledge. Like, they don't even know what's going on because they're just so out of touch with whatever code they've got on this fucking game. But if they have believed, say this whole time, that gameplay is aligned with profits, they for sure would have been more interested in developing a DDA type system that is catered to get you to the story. If they've been thinking this whole time that gameplay is a very important piece to that, which by the way, for one, would be a massive fucking failure. I'm sorry. If you thought gameplay was an important important piece of that. Like I said earlier, you completely failed for 5 years. I mean, you guys, it's worse than I thought over there if that was the case. But their one positive thing they wanted to tell to the shareholders was like, hey, we made a gameplay refresh update and the player numbers look good. They talked about gameplay as they're like, hey, don't sell your shares. Like, that was where they went to. So that shows you that, like, maybe it is really important to them, and they have a patent for dynamic difficulty adjustment. Like, you could easily expect that, like, yeah, they could implement that in if they really want to maximize their profits here. That could have been in the game for a while. That's just like speculation, of course, but that sort of shows you the level of them thinking about money through gameplay, right? That's kind of like the whole point of that. But the last thing I want to talk about here, I guess, is just, hey, we're doing a good job not spending money on microtransactions. This is what you get if you don't do that. If you go right now and for Team of the Year spend money and stuff, all that they give a shit about is that. They didn't make a change here just because they wanted to be nice to us. They didn't make that kind of change. They made these changes because they were underperforming their revenues. That didn't make any sense. Underperforming their revenue goals, right? That's the only reason we saw these changes. If you want to see more of these, stop spending microtransaction money. And the last sentence, we remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in fiscal year 26. So they're expecting growth, actually, if you look, not even until March at least, right? They're not even expecting to see growth now over the course of quarter 4. They're kind of like chalking up quarter 4, it seems like. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of great changes, really. I'd expect to see, honestly, FC 25 now at this point be one of the games where we start to see a bunch of changes made to things we wanted to see. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see the gameplay team now release a ton of updates constantly about just things that we want. I think it's funny because this also kind of shows you that the gameplay team is like, no, we got it, guys. Don't worry. We got this. We know how to make a good game. And they did not have any fucking idea how to do that. I'm sorry. They had no idea. Because now when things get bad, they're like, well, we'll just listen to literally every change that the community wants. And now we had good feedback on the gameplay. You know, it just shows you that they thought they really could do it themselves. And it turns out, no, you definitely couldn't. Unfortunately, you just didn't know what you were doing. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think too, of course. And we'll read some comments from today's video on our daily video tomorrow. And this honestly excites me to see that people did take that non-FC point spending seriously. And we should continue to do that. I don't know to what extent they did take it seriously, but at least it's to the point where they didn't reach their goals. This is the first time in a long time they did not reach a fiscal quarter goal. And that is important for us. Hey, thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all so much. I love you all. So, peace.